Good evening, everyone.
Right.
If I could have your attention, please.
Oh no, you weren't done. Did you? No. No.
If I could have your attention,
Wedding with him.
please. Thank you. My name is Isabel Dunning. I'm one of the professors here at Southwestern, advisor to the law firm. And what we want to do is we're waiting for the food to come, which will come, I'm sure. Is to start our keynote speaker, and I want to introduce him. Our keynote is Mr. Joel Lofton, who is one of my former students. And one of those students who, I think Joel probably wandered into my office outside of being in a class or being anything to just connect. And we did make that connection. I knew from when he was in law school that this was a man who was going to be a friend and a colleague as a lawyer, because he exuded certain kinds of qualities that I particularly admire in lawyers, which is that he is really about public service and caring. And when I say public service, I mean, law is a service profession. So whatever the area of law you're working in, you've got clients, you are servicing them. I don't care whether they're corporations or little people. It happens that Joel happens to be particularly concerned with our people, black people, people of color, but it is a service that we do as lawyers, and Joel understood that from the very beginning. And he knew that whatever he was going to do, it was going to be about service. It's exemplified in his life. You can see in I'm losing the brochure about his life. He has a political science degree from UC Riverside, and of course he graduated from Southwestern. He was president of Balsam while he was there. He was also on Newport, one of the prestigious honors programs that we have. And even before and while he was in law school, he was a teacher. He taught both in private schools as well as public schools because he does care about young people. So you can see it in everything that he's done as a man, the service and the caring. But he sent me something that I think really underscores what this man that I'm so proud to call friend is about. And he, as you'll see in his bio, he is a public defender. And he recently had a trial. Well, yes, I see Cheryl raise her hand, public defender. And he recently had a trial where, of course, he's going to defend somebody who's accused of various criminal crimes. And he was able to get somebody who was facing various felony charges down to misdemeanor, so he was not going to face a lot of time in prison. And several weeks after that, a letter comes to his boss, not from the defendant himself, not from the defendant's family, but from the victim herself. She says, "But what I really appreciated about Mr. Joe Lofton was his concern for people. Even though I wished he had lost because he wasn't on my side, he was really very caring about my feelings. After they came back with a verdict for the case, I was very upset. And even though he won, he felt bad that I was so upset and was trying to comfort me. I know it's his job to help people, but not those from the other side. Yet he's very caring to all. You're very fortunate to have someone like Mr. Lofton that is so good at his job, and we're so lucky to have someone that no matter what or whose side he's on, he cares." And I can't think of any better fitting introduction to Joel Lofton.
Good evening, everyone. Now, I know you've been here for a while and the food is coming slowly, so I will not be offended if I look out and I see people starting to eat their salads or other food. Now, after I was asked to speak here tonight, I was sitting down and I just started to write down what I was going to say. And after about 10 or 15 minutes, I looked down at what I had written and I just started laughing. Because everything I had written were all the cliches and platitudes that you would expect from a commencement speech. But I think the older you get, you realize that these things that people are saying at commencement are actually true. I am honored to be here. I am happy to be here. I know each of you 3 or 4 years ago started on this path to become a lawyer. I know it's a difficult path. I know that probably had to overcome a lot of obstacles to get here tonight. So I am happy and honored to be here as you sit with your friends and family, so I can tell you congratulations that you have made it. Now, I graduated Southwestern 8 years ago, so I know all of the sacrifices and hard work that you guys have gone through. I know about all the missed time you've had with your friends, with your families, all the things that you've missed over the last 3 and 4 years, birthday parties, vacations, events, spending time with your kids and your spouse. But I'm also here to remind you of the good news. All those late hours in the library, all those outlines, case notes, LexisNexis research, practice exams, and those dreaded 3-hour racehorse finals are over. At least for tonight. Right? At least for tonight. We know the bar's out there, but we're not going to worry about that tonight. Right now I want to ask all the people that are graduating this year, if you guys can please stand up so we can recognize you for all the hard work. So I want to take this chance while I'm up here to hopefully give you some advice as you enter the legal profession that you will find to be useful. I'm going to talk about how you fill up that space of actually being a lawyer. Now, you've all learned the basics about being a lawyer. You've learned how our legal system works. You know the difference between common law and case law. And if I throw out terms like, hearsay, constructive trust, rules against perpetuities, everyone here knows what I mean. Or at least you should know, and you definitely will know before end of July, right? But there are a lot of things that you are not taught in law school. Something that's rarely taught in the classroom, and that you will not be tested on it, you will not be graded on it, and it will not appear on the bar. But it is a subject that will not only define you as a lawyer, it will also determine how successful a lawyer you will ultimately become. And that subject is, how are you as lawyers going to talk to and treat other people? How are you going to fill up that space of actually being a lawyer? Tonight I'm going to encourage you that you fill up that space of being a lawyer by always treating people with respect and being honest. Sounds like a platitude, but trust me. What I'm telling comes from experiences. I've seen people lawyers that don't treat people with respect, and lawyers that are not honest. You're going to be interacting very soon. Everyone here, you're graduating, you're going to pass the bar, you're going to be hired. So sooner rather than later, you are going to be interacting with many different people in the capacity of being a lawyer. You're going to be dealing with secretaries, paralegals, clerks, judges, your clients, opposing counsel, your partners, and how you interact with them is going to be very important. Being respectful to them will always be to your advantage. Now, all the people that you're working with, the people I just mentioned, they're going to be your support system. How productive and happy they are is not going to be determined by their salary or by their bonuses. It's going to be determined by how you treat them. Now, in my job, I always make sure I talk to the paralegals and secretaries. When I give them work, I let them know what's going on. I let them know it's important. If an investigator is going off, doing some investigation, I try to go with them. I let them know what's happening. Now, do you think they're going to work harder for me or somebody who just gives them some work to do and never knows their name, never knows anything about them, never encourages them, and never thanks them? Now, after respect, and this sounds like basic stuff, but trust me, if you're out there in the legal field, you would be surprised on how some people talk and deal with other people. Some people maybe they talk one way to a lawyer, but they talk down to other people. I'm encouraging people here, don't be that guy or girl. Don't be that person. After respect's going to come honesty. You're going to decide whether consciously or subconsciously, what type of lawyer you're going to be. If you're going to be the lawyer that hides discovery, are you going to be the lawyer that doesn't return phone calls, that misrepresents case law when you don't think it suits you or it doesn't fit you? Or are you going to be the type of lawyer that's always honest and direct? Now, I'm of course going to encourage you to be honest and direct, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it's going to help you in your practice. Now, about being honest, Mark Twain wrote, "You should always tell the truth. That way you don't have to remember what you said." Those of us in court, we've seen those lawyers who've said one thing to their co-counsel or opposing counsel, another thing to the judge. They forgot that everybody was listening at that last pretrial motion on what they were representing. People remember, people know. A lawyer's reputation is everything. That is not a cliche. What you're going to have as attorneys is your reputation. You need to believe me on this. And each one of you, very soon, is going to have a reputation. Good, bad, or somewhere in the middle. You need to be aware of this. You need to guard it and protect it. So I'm going to tell two brief stories that help illustrate the concepts of reputation and credibility. Now, my wife is here, and she's also a lawyer, and about 3 years ago, she had to go down to San Diego to argue a motion in front of a judge. Now, she works at a local firm, and I don't believe her boss is here, her partner's here, so we can talk about her. Her partner basically sent her down to San Diego to argue a motion. It was a Friday, so we just took the day off, and I took the day off. We drove down there. During the drive, she was telling me what the motion was about. And the motion was a dead bang loser. The motion that her partner had written and wanted her to argue was no good. So Lauren was new at the job, and she didn't want to offend the partner, and she wasn't exactly sure on what she should do. How should she handle this situation? The case law was simply not on her side. So I told her, if you don't believe in the argument, don't make it. Just don't make it. So she was going back and forth, thinking about what she should do. And at one point, as we're driving down, it's like, well, when am I going to be back in San Diego anyway? I'm never going to see this judge again. We finally get down there, and we enter the courtroom, and it's one of these old courtrooms, big courtrooms. I sit in the back, and she checks in. She's the only female, she's the only minority, she's the only lawyer under 50 that was going to make an argument that day. And as she got up, she just decided to make the best possible argument she could, but she did not cite the case law that her partner had written because she knew that law was no good. So when her case was called, she argued it, and she lost the motion, but the motion was the only thing that she lost. She was able to walk out of that courtroom with everything that she entered. Her integrity and honesty would be available to fight the next day, the next court battle. And not 3 months later, the same partner calls her into her office and tells her, guess what? I have another assignment. You got to go down to San Diego and argue another motion. And it was in front of that same judge. Good thing that she didn't lose any respect, or her reputation was intact, just when the law was not on her side. Okay? It's very important, guys. The legal community it's a small world. You might think you're going to run into somebody and not see them again. You're going to see them again. They're going to know you. They're going to talk about you with their co-counsel or the judges in the back. They all have lunch together. Now, since that time, she's made many other court appearances, argued in Superior Court. She's also argued in front of the state appellate courts. She's garnishing that reputation, It would have been a shame if she had lost it 3 years ago, arguing some nonsense motion that probably wasn't that important when you compare the balance of her reputation. Outside, your credibility is our currency. There's no other way to put it. Credibility is the currency of an attorney. Most attorneys win, I think, because they maintain that credibility when they're in front of a judge or they're in front of a jury. Give you one last story about how I believe the case was won solely on the issue of credibility. As some of you know, I'm also in the Army. Last December, I was involved in a court-martial. A young soldier got in some trouble on base, the kind of trouble that exposed him to 23 years in prison and a bad conduct discharge. And he had no defense. He committed the crime, he admitted it to CID, the government investigators, and the trial counsel, that's the prosecution, that's what they call the government prosecutors, they had offered us a plea deal before a court-martial saying, well, if this young soldier admits his guilt, we'll only give him 2 years and a bad conduct discharge. Well, I thought, looking at the facts and all the mitigation, that the case was probably worth only 6 months. They didn't seem to care what I thought. Prosecutors, they were just going to go forward with a court-martial. The prosecution team, that with 3 captains and 1 major, they really wanted to get this guy. So my co-counsel and I, a guy named Captain Sal, we decided, we know our client is guilty. What we really are interested in is the sentencing. So what we want to do is maintain our credibility. So when we're asking the judge for what we want as a sentence, that judge will listen to us as opposed to the other side. That was our main strategy. That was our main strategy. The law, the case, the facts, they were all on the government side. So we find out that the judge, a couple of months before the court-martial, that the judge who's going to be presiding over this court-martial is a guy named Colonel Paul. Now most of you probably haven't heard about Colonel Paul, but let me just give you a little background on this guy. This guy is probably the most respected and feared judge in the military. Colonel Paul was the judge who was assigned to the Fort Hood shootings a couple years ago. As of 2009, he was also the chief presiding officer of the military commissions on the Gitmo detainees. People in the military, we know this Colonel Paul because he was the guy that when President Obama was elected, one of the first things Obama did was say, I'm going to 4 months stay on all prosecutions of Gitmo detainees so we can review the commission, the military commissions. Colonel Paul told Obama, no, we're not going to delay the proceedings because I don't find that it's in the interest of justice. Colonel Paul, President Obama, Colonel Paul. This is who we're going to be dealing with, right? Somebody probably with not a great sense of humor. Now, he didn't know any of us, right? Because he was stationed in Benning, and this happened in Fort Irwin, which is outside of Vegas. So reputation is not an issue, but credibility will be. So we wanted to make sure what we care about is sentencing. So for all the pretrial motions that we made, we only made ones that we knew that we had support. We had support with case law. The government side, at the very beginning, began to suspend their credibility, began to whittle it away. They would oppose motions that they knew were sound. They would themselves file frivolous motions. And we were very careful with what we said. So as the court-martial began, in the opening statements, we were very careful with what we said. The prosecution began to exaggerate, say things they didn't need to say. The guy was guilty. He had a confession. But they felt the need to attack his character and say things that they weren't going to be able to support with the evidence. Then he slowly, their credibility just slowly began to whittle. And at one point, the judge actually literally stopped listening to them. It was during closing arguments of the sentencing phase, right? He was convicted, which we knew was going to happen, but now it's a sentencing, what we care about. When the government got up there and they began to ask for whatever prison they were looking for, he actually just put his head down, stopped listening to them, and started writing. We don't know what, a crossword puzzle or something. The government lawyer turned back to his co-counsel as if, should I just keep talking? He had lost his credibility. It is important for you guys to maintain yours. This, in the military, the language is a little bit different. In the civilian world, they don't even pretend to respect you when you've lost that. So when I got up to make a closing, he listened because he knew from the very beginning, every time myself and the co-counsel Arthur spoke, We were very careful with what we said. Everything was measured. We wanted the judge to look at us as the guys that knew what was going on. We wanted the judge to trust us, that we knew what was happening. In the end, I'm pretty sure he was listening, because he sentenced our guys to 60 days confinement, and he maintained it. He kept them in the military. And I don't know what pleased me more, the look on my client's face or the prosecutors. They were, what happened? Jurors, like judges, listen to people that they can trust. When you're in front of juries, from the moment they walk in, they're going to be evaluated. They're going to be listening to things you say. They're going to watch how you interact with the opposing counsel and with your client. Or if you're a prosecutor, how you talk with the law enforcement, with the sheriffs, or with the judges. If they trust you, they're going to listen to you, and you're going to have more success with your cases. This is not just something for defense lawyers. This is something for all lawyers. People, judges, the same way. I was watching on C-SPAN Chief Judge Roberts, and he was asked, what's some advice you'd give lawyers making arguments in the Supreme Court? And he simply said, just be honest. Most of the time when you're arguing in front of a judge, let's say it's an appeal issue, you're going to know more about that issue than the judges do. Now, if they can trust you, that you're telling them the straight dope of what's happening, they're going to listen. But if you're getting up there and you're saying, if you don't admit your weaknesses of your case, and you just say, well, the other guy's wrong, and the other guy, I don't even know why he's up here, they're not going to listen to you. Credibility, it's going to help you in all aspects. Now, when you get out there, and you're in a situation where somebody's asking you to do something that you know is wrong or dishonest, don't be mad at them. Just tell them, I'm sorry, but I just can't do that. Explain to them very nicely that you graduated from Southwestern University Law School, that you're also a member of LAWSA, and that law school not only graduates lawyers, but it develops leaders. And as a leader, you just can't do what they're asking. You tell them, the guy, you could ask Chris down the hall. I understand he went to SC. As lawyers, you're going to have a significant role in our society. People are going to look up to you. They're going to ask you to do things for them. All kinds of people. Some of them are sitting right next to you. Your family, friends, bosses, and clients. They're going to ask you to do things that are both ethical and non-ethical. You're going to face pressure from a lot of different areas. It's not always going to be easy to keep yourself whole. Now, what I like to think about is something Paul encouraged believers in Romans 12. He said not to be conformed to this world, but to be ourselves transformed by renewing of our mind to that which is good, and to always hold things honest in the sight of all men. I know it's Friday. Well, it's Friday the 13th. But this is my prayer and my hope for all of you, that you go out there and set the example for others on how they should behave and how they should comport themselves as attorneys. And that you are less concerned with the way some lawyers are used to doing business, and more concerned with doing what is right. And that you fill up that space of being an attorney with integrity and respect. And on behalf of my wife and myself, we wish each of you all of the success and happiness that your talents and hard work can provide. Thank you. You want the USC, Joe?